This is Wickett on Wisconsin. My name's Mike Wickett. After 10 years in Milwaukee talking sports, I took a bit of a break, but now This is Wickett on Wisconsin. My name's Mike Wickett. After 10 years in Milwaukee talking sports, I took a bit of a break, but now I'm back and here to talk about the Packers, the Bucks, the Brewers, and more with you. And now inside the Cos Headphone Studios, this is Wickett on Wisconsin with me, Mike Wickett. Another episode of Wickett on Wisconsin. Thanks so much for checking us out once again. And there's so much going on in Milwaukee right now. And I wish we were talking about Bucks basketball going on in Milwaukee right now. And
your background has me hyped right now. I'm not gonna lie. I haven't seen that in so long.
Joining me for this week's podcast and here on the video, if you're watching, he is your in-game announcer. He is the hype man for the Milwaukee Bucks. If you've been to a game, it feels like no one's been to a game at Fiserv Forum in years because of the way the quarantine has gone. But Joe Brown is with me. Joe, appreciate the time, man. How are you? I've not talked to you in a long time.
You know what? I'm well. First of all, thank you for having me on here. How are you? How's the family? Like, what the heck? Oh my gosh.
we got babies everywhere, man. We got babies everywhere. We just, it's different being a stay-at-home dad and not talking to people every day on the radio, and I miss so many people in Milwaukee, but the opportunity to do this podcast and still stay connected to Wisconsin is cool.
Absolutely, man. We're happy for you too. You and Lee, man, that's a beautiful family you guys got there.
Thank you. Wouldn't you much rather be getting ready for a Bucks playoff game than talking to me right now?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Oh. It's been so long, like sometimes I just blurt out like, everybody on your feet. Like, I gotta get it out of me, you know?
You're just walking down Oakland Avenue and you're like, everybody on your feet, and then just a towel wave.
Yeah.
So how did you get to be the guy that gets people hype? Because I remember going to games. This was pre-Fiserv. This was at the Bradley Center. This was when, it was Wiggins or Jabari. Giannis wasn't a superstar yet. This was back in the days of, Brandon. I want to say Brandon Knight. Brandon Knight was there.
He was the man for a second, too.
He was the man for a second. And they brought in Monte Ellis and Brandon Jennings, and they had the shortest backcourt in the history of the NBA. Mm-hmm. But back then, it took a lot more work, I feel like, to get the crowd hyped than the job you do these days.
Well, yeah. When I started, it was the year after the Bulls kicked our ass. Can I say the A word on here?
Yeah, it's fine.
They kicked our tail in the playoffs. I believe it was Game 6. I took my little sister to that game, and they literally beat us out. Not an exaggeration. They ran it up on us by like 60 points. And I remember there was like 13 seconds left in the game, and they passed it to Doug McDermott. It was a full court pass, and they were still trying to score points on us. And it made me so mad. Giannis got kicked out like first quarter of that game because of Dunleavy.
Didn't he throw an elbow or something like that in that game?
Yeah, the MCW. And then Giannis got pissed. It was his rookie year, I believe, right? I think it was his rookie year.
So, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, man, so after that season, that's when I auditioned for Hoop Troop. Those are the guys that get the crowd hyped, throw T-shirts, and pump the crowd up. And I auditioned for them, and I was like, hey, man, I got ideas. I got, T-shirt ideas, merch. Like, I want to be more than just, Hoop Troop. And I was on the radio at the time, too, and they followed me, and they're like, yeah, why don't you try out to be a host? And ever since then, they kept asking me to come back, and now this is my 5th season. So
cool. Very cool. I got to imagine it doesn't take a lot. I mean, maybe it does, especially in the fourth quarter when they're blowing some team out by 35 and they've rested the starters and, Giannis isn't playing and neither is Chris Middleton. But I got to imagine trying to get the crowd hyped, trying to get the crowd live at Fiserv in 2020, that doesn't take a lot of work.
You'd be surprised, Wickett. You'd be surprised. Okay, so the Bucks are really good. Let's just say this year. Last year they were really good too.
Normal times.
Last 2 years. Okay, so at Fiserv Forum we've been really good. Okay, so it's kind of weird because when you're up 20, it's almost like you're down 20 crowd-wise because the crowd knows they're like, oh, the game's over. We're up by 20, 30 points. And, only thing that can really get me hype right now is Bakhtiari chugging a beer or, or this guy right here throwing me a T-shirt. So, so it's really, it could be really tough, especially like sometimes courtside. I get on courtside a lot because they're down there and I'm like, you guys are in the game. I walk up to them with the microphone. I don't like, and I'm like, eye contact. I'm like, come on courtside, we need you because it goes from the top to the bottom.
Yeah, but that's where all the rich people are. That's where the
Right.
money is. They want to sit there. That's where Aaron Rodgers sits. He's not going to get crazy. Right. That's not the fun crowd.
No, Aaron Rodgers actually does. Aaron Rodgers goes crazy, man. I'm not gonna lie. He gets into it. He really gets into it for like the half court shots and like in between the game too. He really is attentive during that, more than you might think too. So
where were you there for Bakhtiari's beer chug? Where were you when because that's pretty famous now.
Yeah, I was in my tunnel. I was in my little tunnel right there. Usually during the game, I'm outside, I'm upstairs, I'm downstairs, I'm on the floor. But right there, I was in the tunnel kind of just appreciating the chugging, and trying to take
notes. What's it like when in the pregame, before everything, when you have your plan, but all of a sudden here come a bunch of Green Bay Packers or here comes some Brewers? Like, how do you guys organize making sure that Christian Yelich gets on the screen and Aaron Rodgers, right. Or does that just happen kind of organically?
Well, we usually get word, okay, because we have to for what we do, we interview people, we talk to celebrities all the time. So we're not like, oh my gosh, I'm talking to this guy. It's a business. We're professional with it. So you got to kind of prep the younger cats that, hey, they're going to be here. Can't really don't go crazy. Don't go wild, But we also have a camera meeting. So we have a camera meeting like, all right, Bakhtiari is going to be sitting here. We know where they're sitting at already. And for the most part, sometimes somebody might come and spur the moment like Aaron Jones, and he'll come through the tunnel, but he'll actually sit in the crowd, which is really cool. Like he doesn't sit, suite or courtside. He'll sit in the crowd and have fun.
Yeah, but once he gets his next contract, he's sitting courtside. He's sitting next to Aaron Rodgers.
Absolutely, but usually we usually know where all the celebrities are going to be sitting. And if Adam Silver's in the house, like we're not throwing shirts. We're not throwing shirts that way.
No, come on now. He doesn't need a Milwaukee Bucks shirt sponsored by David.
It's the crowd is so hyped that you don't want nobody kind of all the ruckus. So
I remember I think it was my first Bucks game when I got to town in 2007. I was sitting in the crowd with some friends, and I remember they were throwing T-shirts, and the Bucks were 20-60 or whatever they were by the time I got there. And I remember they threw the crowd a T-shirt into the crowd, and this guy jumps up and hammers an 11-year-old girl or a 12-year-old girl just because he wanted the T-shirt. And you get up, and she is bleeding from the eye. Bleeding from the eye. He had a giant watch on. Like, that watch probably cost more than my car. And that dude injured a little girl for a 25-cent T-shirt that you guys were throwing.
That's why we don't throw T-shirts in Adam Silver's direction. But I hope he gave that little girl that shirt, or at least, or the watch.
I think it was 13 years ago. I can't remember if she actually got the She probably got a shirt, a gift basket, a pair of tickets to any other game she wanted to go to.
First aid kit.
Yeah, they came down and she just it was awful.
That sucks, man. That sucks.
It was awful. Usually in cities like Milwaukee, and I'm a guy who was born in Detroit, usually the celebrities are the athletes of the other teams. That's kind of the way that it works out. Occasionally, right. Who else comes to Bucks games? Who have you guys interacted with that are not Green Bay Packers and are not Milwaukee Brewers?
As far as celebrities?
Yeah.
Oh man, a lot over the past 2 seasons, season and a half, there's been so many people because that first playoff run in the first year of Pfizer. I've seen people like Amon Rashad, Stephen A. was standing right next to me with an attitude. He has just a straight face. He hates Milwaukee. He can't stand Milwaukee.
Well, I remember the first time I met Stephen A. He came into my old radio station to do his show. I think he was covering the Pistons in 2003, and he was doing his show. And you expect Stephen A. to walk in, and he's just, Shaquille O'Neal, he walks, he's like, hey, man, you know where I can get a sandwich? I'm like,
Right.
you're supposed to be the guy I see on TV. And I was like 22. And I'm like, this is not Stephen A. Smith. Hey, man, can I get a sandwich? Hey, thank
He
you very much,
definitely
man.
knows
I
when to
appreciate
turn
it.
it on, don't he?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Hold on. There's a couple more.
Oh,
Gucci Mane. Gucci Mane came
okay.
last
Okay.
year. We thought Drake was going to come, but it was
What
Gucci Mane.
what was Gucci Mane's entourage like? I got to imagine that's deep.
No, he actually came with his wife, and he sat with Alex Lazarus. Yeah. He came with his wife.
That's an upset. Didn't see that
That was-
coming. Did not see that coming.
They were blinged out. I tell you that. They had all types of bling. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Man,
But
I
who else?
mean,
One of the coolest too was Bill Clinton. I met him at BMO though. I was at the BMO.
Bill Clinton came to
Bill
a Bucks
Clinton.
game.
Yes.
Is there a reason for it, or was there a connection that you can think of?
Well, Michelle Obama's brother, Craig Robinson, he was player development for the Bucks when they were at the last couple seasons at BMO.
Gotcha. That
Yep.
makes
So he came. I think that was probably the connection there.
yeah.
So,
What's it been like going from BMO to Fiserv for you?
oh man, it was kind of surreal. Honestly, it was just seeing this beautiful building getting built, and then like Bradley Center wasn't even. I call it the Bradley Center still. Bradley Center wasn't even like tore down all the way yet. Like they were still tearing it down, and we're like working and functioning out of Fiserv Forum. So it was kind of sad to see that. And like they made sure the last little piece was like the Bradley Center sign. It was like once they knocked that down, it was sad. But I mean, it was built for hockey. It wasn't built for what we have now. And shout out to Senator Herb Kohl. He donated $100 million of his own money. And not only did he do that, but when he sold the team, he could have sold it to Seattle, Las Vegas, whatever. And in the contract, he said the Bucks have to remain in Milwaukee. And you know what? I'm going to donate $100 million of my own money for the cause. And like I appreciate him because if he didn't do that, I probably wouldn't have a job doing what I'm doing. So I'm very appreciative of that. And it's so awesome to have like celebrities come like who would usually just fly over us, go to Chicago, then go to Twin Cities or something like that. And they'll fly over us like, Pink, Kevin Hart, they never come to Milwaukee. Like, so the way they set this up, and now we have main acts, like big acts that want to come
Big
in.
acts, yeah.
It's amazing, man. And I'm so happy, and it's bringing a lot of revenue into Milwaukee too.
I feel like when I moved in 2015, I left and then the Renaissance happened because every time I would go back and visit friends and see people and come to the old radio station or everything I saw online, it was like, man, Milwaukee really grew. It really grew up in a couple of years. And I feel like where you work, Fiserv Forum is really it's like the heart of this. Like it beats and the city kind of has expanded because of the efforts from Edens and Lazary and Peter Fagan and all those Bucks guys. They really injected new life into Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And it's like a ripple effect. It started right there. Like you said, it was a drop of the Fiserv Forum, and it spreads out. And I mean, I appreciate it for them too, for all they did for the Deer District. And, they gave us, emergency relief fund for the Bucks employees when COVID hit. And they didn't have to do that.
Were you included? Because I saw that come out, and I know that we're talking about the players paying for things. People said, "Well, what about the billionaire owners?" And I said, "Everybody, calm down. The Edens and Lazary they're gonna do stuff." Did they take the Bucks paid you? You're okay until we maybe get a season back.
As far as me, I'm considered part-time, so I'm just I'm still I'm actually getting unemployment right now. So
well, hey,
yeah. So I mean, I'm not ashamed to say it. I mean, I work for that money, so it is what it is. But they did help us with the emergency relief fund, and they're selling I think a certain T-shirt that people can buy to go towards the part-timers and things like that. But it's not just me. It's not just the Bucks employees. It's Fiserv Forum and Deer District. So it's everybody that works, in those bars at the Mecca, at Punch Bowl, security security's still working. So but,
right now, security's definitely working.
Yeah,
talking about this.
They so they're doing a lot for their employees, and I appreciate it. So
you're kind of like the voice of the fan. What was it like when you found out the league was getting suspended canceled, shut down temporarily. That day for you, I got to imagine, because you're one of the biggest Bucks fans I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I got to imagine that your heart broke that day, and still to this day, COVID and Bucks related, your heart is hurt.
Absolutely, man. It's sad because it literally took me out the game. Not just me, us, the fans. It took us out of the game. Now to the point where they're talking about having games at Disney World or Disneyland and no fans.
Mm-hmm.
And we worked so hard. I feel like as a city. And let me just back up a little bit. I mean, sports bring people together. Period. So when you see all different walks of life coming in Pfizer Forum and slapping five and getting rowdy and hyped together, and all that's just that positive energy for one common goal. It's so beautiful to see, and that's my favorite part about my job. But I'm sorry, what was
I was talking about what it was like to lose sports and to lose the Bucks.
Yeah, and
what it was like that day.
And now we've been quarantined for 2 months, and now everything that's going on in the world. It's kind of just like the pressure's building up, but I really can't wait for this to just, as far as COVID, just to end, because I want to get back to, getting to the arena. But there's bigger things at hand, too, that's going on in the world that's bigger than sports that need to be addressed before, we can really go back to living our normal lives.
Let's talk about that. I want to talk about that for a second, because you can follow Joe, by the way, on Instagram, your favorite Joe. And you have been part of the protests in Milwaukee, and I assume you've been part of the professional, polite, safe protests, not some of the things that we have seen in every city, unfortunately. What have you done since these began? I mean, I think they kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, they really started getting rolling last Friday, and today, as I'm recording this, it is the 2nd of June. So at the end of May, it really started to get rolling after we saw what happened to George Floyd when that cop murdered him.
Yeah. This is day 5 of the protest right now. I went out there day 3 that night until I couldn't walk anymore, and then I GPSed my truck, and we were an hour and a half away from my truck walking. and I was like, okay.
Man, we marched. Right. Now let's Uber.
Yeah, so I was like, wow, like my back, I'm like, oh, I'm walking like I'm like 88 years old, but it's for a great cause, and no matter like what the media portrays, like everything was peaceful. There was no bricks being thrown. There was no guns being shot. There was nothing like that. There were police. There were helicopters and things like that because they put a curfew on us. There was a 9 o'clock curfew. Actually, the first night they had the curfew, I got an alert on my phone at 9:50, and it said that there's a curfew alert for Milwaukee, 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. I'm like, well, it's 9:50, so thanks for the alert.
Was it enforced? Was the curfew enforced? And did the police round people up and say, with bullhorns, go home? What was it like when they tried to say there is a curfew in Milwaukee?
They didn't. They're just pulling random people over, or if if you're not with the pack, they'll give you a $691 fine.
It's a very arbitrary number, 691. Okay,
$691. Yeah, wow. That's what they give you. But the protest is so peaceful that they'll pay your fine for you. Like, so if you get caught, there's people that'll pay your fine for you.
Wow.
That's how much that we want to get our point made. And it's really sad because there's people out here that there's just a couple bad apples that messes up for everybody. It messes up the whole narrative. When I was out there, and there was nothing wrong with what we did. There was past curfew, but that's what a protest is. It's like, hey, there's other things going on. We really don't care about this curfew you just said, but it was all peaceful. Last night, it was noted that, the police, they just they pretty much block off the neighborhoods now. So now they got their tactics where they block off the richer neighborhoods and kind of weave the protesters to where they want them to go. So that's pretty much what's going on now. But they were just down at City Hall. Look over there, City Hall. Yeah, they're at City Hall today. So they went downtown.
I saw that march today in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 6 miles, and they had water. People were putting out water because it was like 90 degrees or whatever.
There's people giving out snacks. There's people giving out water. And it's like, when we're walking these neighborhoods and people are on their porches, filming us and stuff like that, and we're walking, and we're saying, "Come walk with us, come walk with," and we get people to come off of their porch to come walk with us, and everybody starts clapping. Like it's a feeling of unity right there. You know, there's all different walks of life. There's not just black people out there. There's not just white people out there. There's everywhere in between and all over the place, and that's what's beautiful about it. Kind of reminds me of sports, you know, coming together for a common cause. And I did I did see a pile of bricks randomly just laying down on the street, you know, which I didn't agree with. And people say, "Oh, well, those bricks been there for, you know, a couple of days now or whatever." I'm like, well, we've been protesting for a couple of days too. So, you know, why are they still there if we've been protesting doing the same streets? You know, it's just not it's not cool. And they're trying to ignite something that really isn't even a thing. If we want to be a protest, a peaceful protest, but it's those couple little bad apples that's trying to stir the pot, and that's not what we're about.
Now you're a black guy. I'm a white guy. I live in the suburbs in Des Moines, Iowa. You live in the city of Milwaukee. I don't like. I watch all of this, and the thing I keep repeating is I can't connect to your story, Joe. I can't connect to the feelings that you had. Like when I watched George Floyd get murdered, I was sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
You watched George Floyd, Tamir Rice, anybody else. When you watch this continue to happen, what are you thinking? What are you and your friends and your family members that, you know, are black? What are you guys thinking again? Because it seems to be an again conversation.
Right. I mean, well, the fact of the matter is this has been going on before I was even born, before you were born. You know, this has been going on since literally the beginning of time, since the beginning of America. So this is, you know, nobody really wants to think that deep into it. But when I see this happen over and over again, the first thing I think is, wow, another man, another person is getting killed for no reason. And then they so happen to be, you know, they all have one common denominator, and that's the color of their skin. And you just ask why. It's not fair. And when I see them, I see myself, I see my uncle, I see my father, I see my friend, I see my cousin. I seen George Floyd, I literally seen my family, I seen me. And that could happen to any one of us. But the outrage for me would still be the same if he was white, Arabian, Hispanic. Like that, it's wrong. It's a battle between right and wrong, good and evil, and it's not a color thing whatsoever. It's just people, innocent people, unarmed people are being killed, and nobody's getting punished for it.
The most recent, I guess, explosion of anger that comes to mind was what happened in Ferguson. This seems to be different because it seemed like the only people that were really mad about Ferguson were black people. Whereas, like you said, you're marching down the streets of Milwaukee. I'm seeing it. Heck, I'm watching the news here in Des Moines, you know, in New York City, in Los Angeles, down in Jacksonville, in Portland, wherever. It's all races coming together. Do you think we're on the brink of something really, really, not just pushing the needle a little bit, but it feels like a lot of this country is coming together to say, hey, we really have to have some kind of reform here when it comes to our criminal justice system?
Yeah, I absolutely feel like that. And it's a beautiful thing, you know. Not everything what you see is going to be the actual narrative. That's really all I have to say about that, because a lot of when I go, yeah, there were people driving in the middle of the street, on the other way. That was part of the protest. People were driving on the other side of the street, but it was also curfew, so nobody was really on the streets, you know, and they were blocking us off. So it's kind of like what I would really like to see, and what I don't understand is I would like to see police protest with us, because like I said, it's not us versus them, it's good versus evil. So if you feel that, you know, George Floyd, who's just one of the many that this happened to over and over again, if that was wrong, who would say that was right? You know, why don't you come with us and like help? Hey, you know, I would like to see the police come out there giving us water and stuff like that. Like that's, you protect and serve, you know. There's nobody, you know, breaking into stores or anything like that was a part of our group.
Did you see the Flint protest where the police officer got started? You know, the protest was happening in Flint, Michigan, one of the worst cities in America. Like it's a bad. there's a lot of
I
bad in
believe their
Flint right
water
now.
still has lead in it. Bro.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Don't talk about that anymore.
No, that's 2015, man. That's old.
Right.
Um, the police officers said, we put our helmets down, we put our batons down. What can we do? And they chanted, just like you, walk with us. So all of the cops started hugging and walking the streets of Flint with the protesters. You got to find. I should send you that video.
I did not
man.
see that. I did not see that. But that's what I'm talking. Like that's what we need. That's what we need to come together, man. Like not just like how those couple bad apples in the protests. They're not protesting. They have they have another agenda.
Both sides.
No,
both sides have bad apples.
Both sides have bad apples. So there are good policemen and women also. You know, I know some. You know, I'm not against cops or anybody whatsoever. I'm just against evil and wrong. And and if you do evil and wrong, you should get punished for it.
I know Milwaukee is a really segregated city. From living there for 10 years and falling in love with it like I did. Do you see the whole city coming together?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every branch of the city I see coming together. Of course, there's also there's on the other side too. But when we were out there walking, there was a lot of people who weren't walk with us, but they were clapping us on like, you guys go, you know, they were like hyping us up. Like, and that was a good feeling too, you know, even though they didn't walk with us, they were kind of just like, you guys go. Like they were on their lawns and they were cheering us on.
And drinking beer, most likely, I'm going to guess.
Milwaukee.
Have you seen people breaking stuff? And have you or your friends that you're walking with, have you guys at all said, hey, we got to break that up, we got to stop that? Because I keep seeing some videos of looting that happens, and I see videos of people stopping looting. Like, have you guys seen any of that with your group?
No. The worst thing I've seen was people like just driving on the other side of the street and maybe on a lawn. So yeah, but yeah, that's probably the worst thing I've seen. But that's like I said, those are just those couple of bad apples. It's not, you know, the majority. But one of my friends who owns Trusted Kicks, his store got looted downtown. Actually twice now.
Twice?
Twice. Yeah. So, and it's like, you guys are idiots. You know who's doing this. You guys are idiots, and you guys are being counterproductive to what the protesters are trying to do. So, and because they're making a narrative that, oh, these guys are looting, and then when you got, you know, your president saying, once you guys get the looting, we get the shooting, you know, what it come on, man. That means like it's almost setting the protesters up to be open fired upon. You know, that's what it feels like. It's like, oh, okay, you guys are looting, but it's like, no, we're not looting. They're looting. You know, go arrest them, and we're going to keep protesting.
Are you guys getting any support from local government? I mean, I'm sure there are aldermen that are taking part in some of these. Is Mayor Barrett? Is Governor Evers? Evers is dealing with this whole bag of stuff in Madison, I'm sure, with COVID and the economy in the state. But are you guys getting any indication whether or not you have the support of local government?
I haven't heard anything from Mayor Barrett yet. My personal cousin is actually the county executive, David Crowley, and he's been out in the field, and he's been picking up trash in these parks and stuff like that, where they might have been hit from either looting or, you know, people acting wild and stuff like that. So he's actually out in the field and doing that. I haven't heard of anybody else. I don't really watch the news like that either, Wickett. I'm not gonna lie. I don't.
It's okay.
I stopped watching the news, man. It's too depressing for me, man. It's got to be something positive going on, and they just chose to show the negative.
You might be on it. Who knows? You might have been on it over the weekend. Are you gonna walk again? Because I'm sure this is not. I feel like this, like Ferguson, kind of petered out after a little while. Oftentimes these do, but I just saw video today from Amsterdam and Paris with thousands of people protesting in solidarity across the pond. Do you think that this is going to die down anytime soon, or do you feel like this is going to continue on until the message is really heard?
No, I think just seeing a man get choked out for 8 to 10 minutes, it burned different. It really did. It burned different, man. And I just got that picture in my head, like, and it shouldn't be this, like, normalized to see somebody die, and it is in America. It is.
Yeah, you're right. You're
And
right, and that's terrible.
we're really desensitized to it, and I think a lot of people have PTSD that don't even know it. And just from the trauma of watching stuff like that, and or living in those neighborhoods, where usually people might, in your neighborhood, in those neighborhoods you gotta watch out for each other too. So it's like, but that's in any neighborhood too. So it's just I don't think this is going to die down until we get this resolved. And yes, I'll be back out there tomorrow on my bike this time. Though I'm not. I'll be on my bike.
And what's crazy about all of this, and despite what some people might be posting on social media, the cloud hanging over all of this is a virus that's killed 100,000 Americans. We still have COVID to worry about. And I hope that you're wearing your mask when you go back out there tomorrow. And I hope that everybody is wearing their masks and trying to stay safe, because I think everybody in the back of their mind is watching every city where hundreds and thousands of people are gathering, marching, protesting. There's no way we don't have spikes of coronavirus.
Is that still a thing?
Yes, we have.
Oh,
not.
It is.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
I didn't know. I didn't.
Yeah. Protesting was not the cure for the coronavirus.
Yeah, and I thought of that too, Wickett. Like, I'm like, man, there's got to be a spike in this, and guess where the spike would hit? Where it's already been hitting, where they say it's been hitting, the inner cities.
Yep.
That's where it's going to most likely hit again if there's going to be a spike. But also, it's a flu, so it might, it's like 90 degrees here today. So I don't know if that coronavirus can maintain this heat, but I'm not sure.
I'm no doctor, man. Hey, I'm glad that we got a chance to catch up. It's good to see you. Good to talk with you. I wish we were talking about Bucks basketball in the finals, and maybe we will by September. I don't really know. Nobody really knows. But continued success. I'm really proud of you, man. I'm glad we got a chance to chat, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do it again. Thanks for coming on.
Man, I appreciate you, Wickett. Seriously, thank you so much, man. Thanks for having me, and hope you have me on very soon for any reason. Man.
We'll
talk
do,
about
Joe.
anything.
You take care, man.
All right, be well.
And my thanks to Joe Brown for joining me. He, like every other Bucks fan, is just upset that there is no Bucks basketball to be played at the Fiserv Forum and in Milwaukee, and maybe we'll get it in Orlando, but it's just not the same for a guy like that whose job it is to hype you up during games, and also for sharing the perspective of what it's like in this situation we have going on with the protests, and in some cases they're turning into riots all across the country, and Joe has been marching in them, and it's good to hear his perspective on it, and talk to people that are on the front lines of all of this, and find out what they think of it. And normally after I have a guest on the podcast, I will usually spend time talking about another topic in the world of sports, and I don't think that right now that feels right, at least not on this one. And live video on my podcast page on Facebook, Mike Wickett Podcast. If you haven't seen it, if you have, thank you. And it was after the weekend of protests and riots, and some peaceful and some not peaceful, and I just don't understand a lot. And I don't want to regurgitate everything that I said, but a lot of this doesn't make sense to me, and a lot of it does, and I understand perspective, and I understand where my perspective is because of who I am and my upbringing and where I'm at in life. And maybe it's different for you, especially if you're a person of color, if you are watching this happen. And the inspiration, I think, that a lot of people are seeing from people of all races joining together across the country, not just in Minneapolis where the tragedy happened, and not just in Milwaukee where I'm basically talking to most people in the state of Wisconsin. And I don't know when this is going to end. I don't know what the end game is. I don't know what the plan is. I have no idea. But it felt a little weird to talk about sports. It really did. There really isn't a lot going on because of the coronavirus, which is still hanging over all of this. And there's nothing happening sports-wise other than a couple of events here and there. And, I feel like it would be tone deaf of me to sit here and say, well, let's talk about the Packers' third-round pick. Let's talk about DeGuara, the tight end out of Cincinnati. I urge people to be civil with all of this, and it's it's always, unfortunately, comes back to a big political divide. Like my Republican friends will send me videos and say, these are your peaceful protests. Like my friend Mark in Sheboygan, he sent me a post of looters beating up store owners. I don't know how that helps the cause of George Floyd and his family. And then my Democrat friends will send me videos of police acting irresponsibly. Like I saw one, somebody sent me today of Philadelphia protesters. They were peacefully protesting, and then police kind of bookended them and then started pushing them off the street up this giant grassy hill and started tear gassing or gassing them or whatever the gas is. And I don't know how that helps anything. You know, I don't want to go political because if you know me, you know where I stand politically. I tend to lean a little left. And I don't see any of this ending anytime soon. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing. Again, I think it comes down to your perspective. I think it comes down, unfortunately, to your political divide, to your political affiliation. I mentioned this to Joe in the podcast. It doesn't feel like this is going to end anytime soon. It doesn't feel like protests and marches are going to end anytime soon. I just hope that both sides don't escalate it to another. I saw a video of some looters or rioters or protesters or whatever you want to call it. There was a woman, I might have been in Nashville, and if it's wrong, forgive me. But a woman is doing a stand-up. You know, she's got her microphone in her hand, and she's doing her stand-up live report. And a guy comes behind her, and he's got a dog on a leash. And the dog got strangled. They stole a dog from a pound while rioting or looting and then strangled the dog. For what? That dog is dead now. For what? What did that solve? I don't get it. I really don't. I saw in Los Angeles, somebody was holding up a sign in front of a giant, like, army tank Humvee police vehicle. And the police shouted, if you don't move, you're going to be dead. Really? Are we really going to start killing people who are... I wish I had the answer. I really do. I wish I was doing, this podcast talking about Brewers baseball in the month of June, looking at the trade deadline, Bucks basketball in the NBA finals, rookie camp in the rearview mirror for the Packers, getting ready for training camp in 2 months. I wish we were talking about that, but unfortunately we're not, and I don't know when it's going to end. I wish it would. And I think the ultimate symbol of how torn and tattered we are right now as a country was the flagpole in Sheboygan. And if you saw it, you know what I'm talking about. I didn't know that the country's tallest flagpole was in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. But apparently it is. And there was a big storm that rolled through that part of Wisconsin on Tuesday night. And it shredded it. And there's a very iconic photo going around the internet right now of a flag ripped to shreds. And that unfortunately feels like where we are right now as a country. And I really want to get back to some sort of civility, from the virus perspective. I want to get back to football, but I want to get back to baseball, but I want to get back to basketball, but hockey and everything that you probably enjoy. Don't forget, Podcastathon is coming up this weekend. And if you're unfamiliar with what Podcastathon is, it is a fundraiser that my friends that employ me, Edge Podcasting Network, have put together to benefit those that are hungry in the state of Wisconsin. Live for and feeding Wisconsin. We are going to be trying to raise as much money as we can. This was put together pre-protest. This was put together to help those who, don't have jobs and money that they had before the coronavirus hit. And I guess it just kind of, I don't want to say the virus has been put on the back burner because it still reigns supreme in my mind. And now we need to do what we can to help those who definitely need it. So I implore you to tune in. I'll be live on Saturday doing this podcast, and on Sunday doing my other podcast called Check Out My Dad Pod, where I talk to dads every week and what life is like being a dad, because I'm a stay-at-home dad of 3 babies. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you check us out on Saturday. I'll have everything on the Facebook page. It's on A100, Edge Podcast Network, and also WisconsinPodcast.com. Thanks to Joe Brown for joining me. This has been Wickett on Wisconsin. Please stay safe. Please stay healthy. Please be good to each other. And until next week, go Pack, go Bucks, and go Brewers. Thanks for listening to Wickett on Wisconsin. If you have any feedback or you want to reach out to the show, you can find me on Facebook, Mike Wickett Podcasts, or you can email MikeWickettPodcasts@gmail.com. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter @Mike Wickett. Thanks to Silverman Sound Studios for providing the music for today's show. And you can find us anywhere you find your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Until next week, thanks for listening to Wickett on Wisconsin.